La Torre de Londres, patrimonio de la humanidad y una de las más importantes y famosas atracciones turísticas de la ciudad, cuenta con una historia de casi 1000 años. Palacio, prisión, casa real de la moneda, hogar de las joyas de la corona. Os lo mostraré en otro vídeo. Hoy vamos a dejar que un experto, el Beefeater más simpático y divertido, nos cuente su historia.
That was brilliant, that. Like being in a waiting room for an asthma clinic. Yeah. Right, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to His Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, the Tower of London, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. For your information, my name is Yeoman Warden Darren Hardy, and I'm one of the 35 Yeoman Warders nicknamed Beefeaters. You've heard that term, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
Well, it's a privilege, the pleasure, the delight, the wonder to work, and I actually live here within the walls of the tower with my family. Welcome to my home, everybody!
What's for
Hope
dinner?
you like what I've done with the place? I'm actually toying with the idea of putting the jacuzzi in a minibar over there. Do you think that's a good idea? Awesome.
Yeah.
Next time you come, bring your cozies, some fresh towels and some booze.
Yeah.
No younger children here, is there? No. Awesome, thank you. Right, so you're very, very welcome. So, I've introduced myself. Hands up, anybody here from America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, put your hands up. Welcome home, guys. You never call anymore, you just turn up on the doorstep unannounced, you know, but you're all very, very welcome. Right, so before we begin, I must warn you, mums, dads, boys and girls, one and all, that my tour here today contains stories, dits, tales about murder. Give me a new.
Ooh.
Execution.
Ooh.
Torture.
Oh.
Somebody's excited now. Killing children.
Yes,
Yeah.
Who said that?
I don't work for the BBC.
I was going to say, are you a teacher, sir? You're very, very welcome. So we're about to begin. So strap yourself in. We've got about 1,000 years to cover in about 50 minutes. So here we go. Right, our story here begins way back in the year 1066, where a man called William, the Duke of Normandy, he's later known as William the Conqueror, defeats the Anglo-Saxon King Harold at the Battle of Hastings. William's crowned King William I of England, Christmas Day that same year, but he has to continue to fight his newly conquered subjects because they don't take too kindly to Norman domination. William's looking for somewhere to impress over all the citizens of London, so he chooses a site just inside the eastern city wall where once an old Roman fort had stood. In fact, within the ancient Roman established city of Londinium. And it's here in the year 1078 that he authorised the building of his first royal palace and fortress of its kind to be built in England. Today, we refer to it as the White Tower, and it's situated just behind those rooftops.
Oh, with the flag.
And I don't know why you're looking, it's just behind those rooftops. Every time. But you're going to get a much better view of it once we get inside, right? So, over the next 200 years, successive monarchs, they continued to add to the tower's defences. You've got what you call an inner ballium, or inner defensive wall there where the houses are. That was completed around 1220, and it's got 13 smaller towers. Got the outer wall there. That was completed in 1280, and that's got 6 further towers, and they're along the south, yeah, facing the River Thames, and that was to defend from attack coming up the River Thames. Third line of defence was the moat or ditch, and once filled with water, it goes all the way around the tower, and you're basically stood in it now in the moat, yeah. And the moat itself, this was dug during the reign of King Edward I in the 13th century, and it was designed to use the tidal flow of the River Thames. Twice a day, the river would flow into and around the moat to flush it clean of its stinky putrid waste. That's poo. And that stinky putrid waste would make its way down old Father Thames, across the English Channel, and dump itself on the shores of France.
Yeah.
Is there anybody
Mon
here
Dieu.
from France?
Nobody today.
Did I get away with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Still got a job. That's it. I'm only joking, if you are from France, that is. But what did happen was, over the centuries, all the rubbish and excrement directed into it from Shoreditch and Houndsditch, they're over there, it did come into the moat, and it stayed here and it stagnated, and it became the largest cesspit in Europe.
Oh.
But to be perfectly honest, at that time, it was by far the tower's best ever form of defence.
Yeah, okay. Well, kind
About
of.
it. This situation continued for the next 500 years, till in 1843 the then Constable of the Tower of London, the Duke of Wellington, he asked permission from Queen Victoria to have our moat drained. This was granted, and he had it filled in with sand and shingle up to the height that you see it today, about 4.5 metres higher to be precise. So for the Americans here today and readers of the Daily Mail, that's 15 feet higher. There we are. Right, as I said earlier, first royal palace and fortress of its kind to be built in England, and over the years this place has been used for a number of things, including White Tower, built on the orders of William the Conqueror, that was used as a royal residence right up until 1603. Last monarch to live here, King James I. The Crown Jewels, the royal regalia, been here since 1303. The Royal Mint was here, the Royal Armoury, the Royal Records Office, it was the Royal Menagerie or Zoo. All the animals given as gifts to our kings and queens, they were kept here, yeah, until they were moved to Regent's Park in 1835, and you know it as London Zoo. Last but no means least, this must rank as probably one of the most famous, or should I say infamous, prison complexes in the world. Give me news.
Ooh.
We've only got 5 hours. Talking to prisoners, because you remind me of some old friends. Just turn around, everybody. Turn around, come on. Right, please look up onto the hill. You can see a pink ice cream van there. Beyond that, over the road, you've got a place up there called Trinity Square Gardens, and it stands in an area known as Tower Hill. Some of you may have got the tube to Tower Hill Station. And up there was the site of many executions between the 14th and the 18th centuries, and King Edward IV, he actually had a permanent execution scaffold erected up there in 1465, which caused much concern in the city of London. And over the years, no less than 75 men of noble birth were to lose their heads up there by means of the block and axe. Now, the first victim was a man called Simon Sudbury, and he was the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he was murdered up there at the hands of peasants in 1381 for daring to introduce a poll tax. Yes. Are you pining for the good old days? Is that what it is? 7 years later, in 1388, the first legal execution on Tower Hill was that of Sir Simon Burley. And by remarkable coincidence, the last victim in 1747 was another Simon.
Cowell.
Anybody here called Simon? No? There is a severe lack of Simons in the city of London.
You have Simon
This man was
Cowell.
called Simon Fraser, the Lord Lovat, and he was an 80-year-old Scottish lord who supported Bonnie Prince Charlie in what we call the Second Jacobite Rebellion. Right, just for a moment, let's pause, shall we? We're going to imagine the scene up there on a day of execution. Tens of thousands of stinking, filthy, putrid, dirty, disgusting, unwashed peasants!
They're not looking.
Well, they gathered around the race platform, the scaffold, to witness the proceedings and have a day of festivities and fun.
Oh, yes.
That's right, kids. It was fun up there. Mummy and Daddy would take you to a public beheading for the ultimate fun family day out. And they'd all be there, the whole family. Mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, writers, fighters, zookeepers, shopkeepers with babies and bundles, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and a host of all others enjoying their day. Everybody on the hill was having a fabulous time. Give me a cheer.
Yay!
Except for one.
Yeah, well.
Simon.
Simon says, don't laugh.
Having delivered his final speech and said his prayers, the prisoner would kneel down, placing his neck on a block of oak. For the executioner to bring the axe crashing down upon him, he would have to give him a very specific word and signal. This has been found in the Tower archives, and it's historically something like this.
Off you go.
Ready! The executioner would then bring down his axe, hopefully beheading his victim with one stroke. The executioner would then pick up the severed and still bleeding head and hold it aloft for all to see. Turning the assembled crowd, he'd then proclaim, "Behold the head of a traitor! So die all traitors! God save the king!" And the crowd would cheer!
Yay!
Everybody turn around and wave at this person up here. Hey! Buy a ticket!
Oh my god.
Anyway, the head's then impaled onto a soldier's pike, carried through the streets of London towards London Bridge. Because in those days, that was the only bridge across the River Thames. The head's then displayed above the entrance to the city as a sign of the fate that awaited all would-be traitors. And then the headless corpse was taken down, placed in a small handcart, and then it's brought into the tower, where it's buried in an unmarked grave, a traitor's grave, in the chapel within the walls. So what we're going to do now is we're going to follow the route of that headless corpse.
Jolly,
We're going to go up this
good.
ramp, we're going to turn left, and when we get through that archway, we're going to turn left onto Min Street. Right, you lot over here, I'm Moses, you're the Red Sea. Make a gap. Come on. Any
Where's the
questions?
gap?
No.
No.
Hurry up!
Coño, qué susto.
750 years to go yet. Are they on our tour, or is it just Englishmen joining the queue? I'm not sure. Right, you're now standing in what we call the outer ward of the Tower of London. That's to say between the inner and outer defensive wall. The roadway which you stood on, this is called Mint Street, because it was here from about the year 1279 to 1810 that the vast majority, not all, but the vast majority of the coins of the realm, the money, this is where it was designed and produced. Yeah. The buildings which house the mint behind you, they're called the casemates or houses in the wall. And they're now occupied by some of my Yeoman Warden colleagues and their families. You see, because the Tower of London's a village. We live here, yeah? We're a population of about 140 people. If it looks like a house and it's lived in, it probably is. And we live in these houses with our wives, our husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, girlfriends, children, dogs, cats, hamsters, mother-in-laws.
No. Oh
Sorry.
dear.
Anyway, behind you to the right there, you can see a tall, narrow archway. That's the Sallyport or Byward Postern. Yeah, that's our royal entrance. That's the royal entrance, actually. Beyond which, there's a small drawbridge leading out to the Queen's Stairs, and that goes directly down to the River Thames. Because back in the day, rather than travel through the narrow and packed, dangerous streets of London, royalty, nobility, they'd travel down the River Thames in their impressive barges, yeah, tie up alongside those stairs, and with little difficulty, they'd gain access to the tower. The gates within that archway, they're original, and they date back more than 700 years. Now, it was at those very gates that King Henry VIII.
Oh yes.
Have you heard of him, everybody?
Oh yes.
Wasn't he a lovely man?
Oh.
Swipe to the left, swipe to the right.
Divorce, beheaded.
Can't believe that some of you know what I'm talking about. Am I getting the measure of you? Some of you, it's very surprising. Yeah. Anyway, he greeted his second wife there, Queen Anne Boleyn, mother of Queen Elizabeth I. Actually, can you be Anne? Come here. Everybody, this is Anne Boleyn. Everybody say hi, Anne.
Hi, Anne.
So Anne, you're Anne. I'm Henry. Okay. So we're meeting together. And this is what Henry says. Lovingly and tenderly says to Anne, Anne, my darling, I promise to love you for the rest of your life. Do you know how it ends, Anne?
Yes.
But it was cheaper than divorce. It still is. It still is. Yes. Everybody say thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anne.
Of course, Anne was to return to the tower 3 years later. Very different reason, very different game. More on her later. Right here front here, we've got the bell tower. It's called the bell tower because it is a tower with a bell on top.
Really?
We like to keep the name simple here for the Americans. There we are. Please don't punch me. Yeah, it's called the bell tower. It's got this. It's got the oldest curfew and alarm bell in the city of London on top of that. Yeah. The current bell's been there's been a bell on top of there for about 500 years. The current bell dates from about 1652. The bell, just for the interest, and for the Americans actually, that bell was founded at the Whitechapel Bell Foundry, which stands about a mile from here. Another famous bell to be founded there was the Liberty Bell. Have you heard of that? Yes. Yeah? Any Americans here who've heard of the Liberty Bell? Put your hands up. Yeah, right, so, just want to get this right. So when we gave you that bell, it was in one piece. No design flaws, it was in one piece. And then you broke it, didn't you? Just like you did our language. And just for the record, it's pronounced aluminium. All right?
Aluminum.
Get that out there. And you have tomato and basil soup. I just want to put that there. Please don't hit me. Please don't hit me. You're very, very welcome. So that was there. Right. What are the famous things about this tower? We've had quite a few famous prisoners in it. The man for all seasons, Sir Thomas More, one-time Lord Chancellor of England. Yeah. He was held in this tower. Yeah. Because he refused to accept King Henry VIII as the head of the Church of England. At the same time, and for the same reason, John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, he was held in the upper room known as the Strong Room. Now, both of these men would have suffered terribly, but neither of them could be persuaded to abandon their beliefs, and so they were finally taken up onto Tower Hill in 1535 for public beheading. 400 years later, in 1935, both of these men were canonized as saints of the Roman Catholic faith. Right, another famous prisoner to be held in here, you may not have heard of him, was a man called James Scott, Duke of Monmouth. Who was he? Well, he was the eldest of the 16 or so illegitimate children of King Charles II. Now, children, if you don't know what illegitimate means, just ask your parents when you get home. And then for extra bonus points, ask them in front of your grandparents, okay? Yeah, and he was also imprisoned in this tower. Now, after the death of his father, Charles, in 1685, this very handsome and popular young man, he was persuaded to stake his claim to the throne by virtue of his uncle James being a Roman Catholic, yeah? So to press home his claim, he landed in Lyme Regis in the west coast of England, and he marched inland, gathering popular Protestant support in what is now known as the Monmouth Rebellion. Well, the revolt was crushed at the Battle of Sedgemoor on the 6th of July 1685, but the Duke, he escaped the battlefield and he evaded capture for a week, till he was eventually found hiding, disguised as a shepherd, cowering in a ditch. Condemned to death in his absence, there was no need for a trial, and so, but 3 days later, he was taken up onto Tower Hill for public beheading. Now, children, who likes bedtime stories? Do you like bedtime stories? Do you like bedtime? Because once upon a time, up on Tower Hill, there was to be the bloodiest execution ever in English history.
Yeah.
The executioner, a giant of a man called Jack Ketch. He was known for 3 things in his life. He was a part-time family butcher. He was a part-time executioner. And he was a full-time drunk.
Of course.
The latter being his greatest ever achievement in life. We all have friends like that, don't we? I have 34 of them. They're called Yeoman Warders. Yeah. Anyway, as Monmouth climbed the steps of the scaffold and realised that Ketch was to be his executioner, he froze. Why? Well, this was the man who had drunkenly botched the beheading of his good friend Lord Russell, taking 3 strokes of the axe to sever the head from the body. Do your work well, Monmouth instructed Ketch, and do not use me as I hear you hacked my poor Lord Russell. He then tipped him a generous 6 golden guineas to do a good job.
Well,
It was after this event that in this country we began tipping people after the job.
yeah, well,
He begged him to strike true, and then he knelt down to await his fate. Ketch, visibly shaken by this, raised his heavy axe high above his head in order to dispatch his victim. His first blow immediately glanced Monmouth's head. The crowd went, ooh!
ooh,
The second blow landed squarely between the shoulder blades, and the crowd went, ah!
ah,
But the third blow failed to finish the job, and the crowd began to boo and roar in disapproval. Give me a boo!
boo,
Ketch bottled it, cast his axe to one side, and cried out, God damn me, I can do no more. My heart fails me, I cannot do it. The Sheriff of London ordered Ketch to pick up the axe, get a grip, and get on with the bloody job. He'd be next. 1 to 2 blows later, and the head was still attached by the skin and the gristle. Are we enjoying this story, children? Are you enjoying it now?
have you seen
You
Harry
are
Potter?
enjoying it. Where's your parents? Is this Mummy? Mummy is the doting father of a 7-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy. But for some strange reason, don't want bedtime stories from their daddy anymore. If I can give you a little bit of friendly parental advice. When you get home today, you seriously need to reconsider his TV viewing preferences. So what happens next? He takes out his butcher's carving knife, pulls his head back to finish the job, cutting and sawing
Oh,
to the
come
skin,
on.
the flesh, the tissue, the bone. What's wrong? Is it just me and him enjoying ourselves up here? Strange to relate that both head and body were brought back into the tower and placed on a table in the chaplain's house, where they were sewn back together.
Come on.
Why? I'll tell you why. He was the son of a king, wasn't he?
Well,
And they'd forgotten to paint his royal portrait. The court painter, Sir Godfrey Kneller, was then quickly fetched and tasked with this macabre sitting. After which, Monmouth's head and body were buried beneath the altar, where they remain to this day. Right, enough of this blood and gore. What we're going to do now is we're going to go up Water Lane to Traitor's Gate and the Bloody Tower. Are we ready?
yeah.
Come on, then let's go. All right, we'll get started. So, the roadway which you're now standing on, this is called Water Lane, because up until about the year 1275, the River Thames actually washed against us in a defensive wall behind you. When this outer wall was built, the River Thames was pushed back and the roadway was raised some 12 feet. That's why we call it Water Lane, because prior to that, you would have been stood on the beach, yeah? And these ancient cobbles which you're stood upon now were placed here in the year of our Lord, 1971. History's got to start somewhere, hasn't it? Yeah. Right, to your front is probably one of the most famous, or should I say, infamous gates in the world. Traitor's Gate, give me a new. Give me a bigger room. More like him. Built on the orders of King Edward I because he required a safer and more useful entrance into the tower. So, rather than travel through the narrow and packed streets of London, where convoys could be attacked, stores stolen, prisoners set free, he decided to use the River Thames as a highway. So at high tide, because it was tidal, boats could pass through this gate and they could unload their cargo in safety. And therefore, it was actually originally known as the Water Gate. So, it's called the Water Gate. How then did it become known as Traitor's Gate? Well, this occurred during the Tudor period, and that was down to the large number of alleged traitors that entered this mighty fortress through those grim gates. Amongst them, no less than 3 Queens of England: Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, and Lady Jane Grey. High dignitaries of the church were no exception. We didn't care. Archbishops Latimer, Cranmer, Ridley, they were brought into the tower during the reign of Queen Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary. These 3 pious men were later taken to Oxford, where they were burnt, barbecued at the stake, yeah? Another famous figure to be dragged through this gate before he was executed at Smithfield was a Scotsman under the name of William Wallace.
Oi, Braveheart.
Braveheart.
Not really, yeah, I know.
Have you seen Braveheart?
Of course. Yeah, come on.
It's about as accurate as Guardians of the Galaxy. In fact, the only Mel Gibson movie which is more accurate than Braveheart is called What Women Want. It's not history. Right, everybody, turn round. Because to your front, we've got the infamous Bloody Tower. Give me new.
Ooh.
Right, that was originally known as the Garden Tower because it overlooked and gave access to the Lieutenant of the Tower of London's garden, okay? But its name was changed to the Tower of Blood, or Bloody Tower, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, Shakespeare, yeah? And that was to commemorate the many tragedies that have happened within. And surely the most tragic, it's got to be the alleged murder of the two boy princes in 1483. The uncrowned King Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, aged 12 and 9 respectively, they were smothered to death, suffocated, whilst living in the Bloody Tower under the protection of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester, otherwise known as King Richard III. Now, as the story goes, their little bodies were bundled down the stairs leading to the Wakefield Tower and quickly buried beneath a pile of stones. The next day, they were moved by an unknown priest and buried in a secret spot under some stairs on the south side of the White Tower, halfway up the stairs, external stairs. And there they remained for 191 years until workmen during the reign of King Charles II, well, they discovered a wooden chest in 1674. On opening this chest, it was seen to contain two small bodies. Experts of the day declared that they were indeed the missing princes, and so, on orders from the king, they were moved to Westminster Abbey and they were reinterred in Innocents' Corner, where they remain to this day. Now, as for King Richard III, he was eventually defeated and killed at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485 by Henry Tudor. Henry was to become King Henry VII, first of the Tudor dynasty, the father of King Henry VIII. That lovely Tudor pin-up, yes. Now, as for King Richard III, his body was thought to have been lost for centuries, till it was eventually discovered in 2012 in the city of Leicester, in the Leicester City Social Services car park under car parking space R. And that was the site of the former abbey. Isn't that incredible?
Cool.
Isn't that incredible? So Richard has the unique accolade of being the last king of England to be killed in battle,
Bless his soul.
but the first to have his own car parking space.
Well,
So, enough of this. If you can make a gap for me again, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the inner ward of the Tower of London for our final stop. We have more tales of murder, execution and gift shops. Siberian summer kit here. That's it. Just, like I say, just keep closing in. Come on, kids, come on in, you come.
come on, COVID is
That's
over.
it.
Just
That's it. Just close in. Come on. Get closer. Come in closer. Come in closer. That's it. Right, where we are now, this is called the inner ward of the Tower of London. And this is the oldest part of the tower. To your front, well, we've got Tower Green. And this is the village green of the Tower of London. Like I said, we're a village. We're probably one of the oldest and most consistent village communities in the city of London, okay? And we are a village. Welcome to my home. You know, so we've got a church. We've got a pub called the Keys. Yeah? You can't get into it. You can't say it from over there. Nah, 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 nah. Yeah. And the other thing we've got is our village green, Tower Green. Now, unlike most village greens in this wonderful country, with our cricket pitches and duck ponds and quaint little picnic areas, we've got something quite special and unique on our village green, because what we've got over there is our very own private execution site. Give me an R.
oh,
Isn't she a beauty? Yeah, yeah.
kind of cute.
Actually, she's not really. So that glass monstrosity over there, yeah, that's not to be confused with the public scaffold on Tower Hill, okay? There's only several people being executed there. Apparently, well, that's the execution memorial, okay? It's art. To me, it looks like a coffee table for vertically challenged people that shop at IKEA. But that's just a personal opinion. Like I said, only several people were beheaded here. 3 of them were Queens of England. 2 of them, wives of King Henry VIII. But before I tell you about them, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of the buildings that surround our village green. So, if you look into the corner there, L-shaped building there, Tudor structure built in 1540, that's the King's House. Why is it called the King's House? It's the King's House, yeah. Royal Palace and Fortress, that's the King's House. Should His Majesty King Charles III want to come and stay in his house, well, that's his house over there. However, we haven't had a monarch stay here since 1603. So who stays there? Well, the King's representative, the Constable of the Tower of London, my boss, General Sir Gordon Messenger, he lives in there with his family. Now, being the home of such important officials, well, prisoners. We've had quite a few famous prisoners held in it. You know, I mentioned Simon Fraser earlier, last to be beheaded on Tower Hill. Remember him? He was held in there prior to being executed up there. It's also believed in much earlier period, Queen Catherine Howard, that's Henry VIII's fifth wife. She was held in there prior to being beheaded around there. For the Americans, another famous prisoner to be held in the top floor of that house for his offensive writings was a man called William Penn. William Penn. And even so, as a prisoner, he managed to compile his controversial pamphlet. It's called No Cross, No Crown. Yeah? And he was only released on the condition he left the country. He then crossed the Atlantic to found his famous Quaker colony, Pennsylvania, named in honour of his father. Okay? One of the last state prisoners, high status prisoners to be held in there, was a man called Rudolf Hess. And he was the deputy leader of Nazi Germany, Hitler's right-hand man. Yeah? And he was held in there for 3 days in May 1941. He's then moved into the country for his own safety for the rest of the war. Now let's talk briefly about the Tower as a prison. We weren't designed as a prison, we weren't built as a prison, okay? We're a royal palace and fortress. But we became one of the world's most notorious prisons over the centuries. So here's a few facts for you. First prisoner to be imprisoned here was a man called Ranulph de Flambard, the Bishop of Durham, on the 15th of August 1100. Last person to be executed here was a German spy called Joseph Jacobs on the 15th of August 1941. Between those two dates we've had over 8,000 prisoners documented that we know of. 31 escaped, 48 were tortured. 365 of them were executed, the vast majority of them outside the tower walls in the city. And here's another fact for you. Wherever you're stood in the city of London, wherever you're stood, you're no more than 500 metres from a former execution site.
Oh, great.
Think about that the next time you're waiting for a bus. 7 were beheaded here on Tower Green, 5 of them were women, 3 of them were Queens of England, and 15 men were executed by firing squad. 12 of them in the 20th century. More people were executed here at the Tower of London in the 20th century than any other period in its history. 20th century. In spite of all this, lovely place to live. The kids think it's great. Yes. So that's about the prisoners. Okay, and now over to my left or behind you or to the right, Chapel Royal of St Peter ad Vincula, one of the 2 royal chapels that we have here. In there, it's probably one of the most important royal burial places in the country after Westminster Abbey and St George's Chapel, Windsor. So we've got 15 members of the royal family in there, 3 Queens of England buried in there. James Scott, Duke of Monmouth, had his head stitched on, remember him? He's beneath the altar. 2 Catholic saints in there, St John Fisher, St Thomas More, they're in there as well. Wonderful space. Further over to the right, we've got the Waterloo Block, and that's standing on the side of the Grand Storehouse, destroyed by fire in 1841. And that building there was erected as a barracks, a military barracks in 1845 to house about 1,000 soldiers of the Tower Garrison. That's its original purpose, for 1,000 soldiers. It's now the location of the Crown Jewels. Do you want to see the Crown Jewels? Yeah. See the big clock there? Beneath the big clock is the entrance into the Crown Jewels. Anybody been to see them yet?
Yep.
Anybody? You've been to see them? Marvellous. Right. They're the real deal. There's nothing fake in there. Okay? They're the real deal. They're the very same jewels that were used on His Majesty's coronation. We know that to be true because members of his bodyguard, we were there, guarding him and the jewels, okay? Now, in the walls, we've got 23,500 precious gems. One of the largest colourless cut diamonds in the world, the Star of Africa, the Cullinan one. It's 530.2 carats. Now, the diamond it was cut from was a staggering 3,106 carats. Now, the Cullinan, size of an egg, in the year 2000, that was valued at £500 million.
Wow.
That's 1 out of 23,000.
Wow.
So on a serious lovers with their fiancés or potential fiancés. Don't go in there. Do not compare your engagement ring to the Star of Africa. You said you loved me. That's pathetic. Yeah, start your life together. It's called holy monotony. I mean holy matrimony. That's it.
Holy monotony.
Sorry, a bit of a slip there. Start over. No, but they are the real deal. There's no queues at the moment. Enjoy them. Enjoy them. No queues. Absolutely brilliant. Right, on that, queues. Moving swiftly on. Right, let's return our attention here. The scaffold side here behind me. Like I said, only several people were beheaded here. 3 of them, Queens of England. Probably the most famous of them all, I'm sure you'll agree, on the 19th of May 1536 was a poor soul.
That's my birthday.
Called Queen Anne Boleyn. She was the second wife of King Henry VIII, and she was the mother of Queen Elizabeth I, probably one of our most celebrated monarchs. Yeah? Americans, Virginia's named after her. Yeah? So very famous monarch. Now Anne was tried and found guilty here at the Tower on trumped up charges, fabricated evidence of incest, adultery, witchcraft, treason. And she was to be beheaded here on the green, not with the axe, which she feared greatly, but in the French manner, a professional manner, with a 2-handed sword. Anne's last words on the scaffold were, "Lord God, have pity on my soul, to Christ I commend my soul." And she repeated these words again and again. And the executioner was so swift that he struck off her head with one stroke. And as her head hit the ground, horrified onlookers witnessed her lips still moving in prayer.
Oh, come on.
It was so quick, it was so clean, it was so efficient that this poor woman, she was a poor woman. Should never have happened. She didn't even know she was dead. To this day, she lies beneath the altar in our chapel. When you go in there, you see the altar cloth, the green altar cloth, where it drops to the left. That's where she is, okay? Where it drops to the left. In 1542, the axe unusually fell twice here on the same day. This time the victims were Queen Catherine Howard, that's Henry VIII's 5th wife, and her lady-in-waiting. Now Catherine, she was executed because of her associations with other men. Both before being married to Henry and during her marriage to Henry. Was to be, however, an affair she had with a man called Thomas Culpeper, a gentleman at court that proved to be her undoing, and on the scaffold she spoke to her executioner saying, "I die the Queen of England, but was rather die the wife of Thomas Culpeper." An admission of guilt or expression of love we shall never know. Jane Boleyn, Jane the Viscountess of Rochford, she was her lady-in-waiting. She was beheaded immediately afterwards. And her crime was that she knew all about her mistress's adultery. She helped orchestrate it. She helped it happen. But she hadn't told King Henry VIII. Disloyal. Not a very wise move with him. Other people executed on the orders of King Henry VIII was Margaret Pole, Countess of Salisbury, 67-year-old woman. 11 strokes of the executioner's axe. 11 to sever their head from the body. Barbaric. Yeah? Another person, Lady Jane Grey, tragic and innocent uncrowned queen of only 9 days. 17-year-old girl, executed on the orders of Queen Mary Tudor. Well named Bloody Mary. Had over 300 martyrs, people burnt at the stake for heresy. She was the first proper Queen of England. Did you know that?
Yeah.
The first proper Queen of England. Funny enough, she hasn't been adopted as a feminist icon. Yeah. Another person to be executed here, Robert Devereux, Earl of Essex, Queen Elizabeth, one of Queen Elizabeth I's former favourites. Beheaded over there. Yeah. Several other unfortunate souls have met their demise here. Their names are etched into that memorial, and they lie to this day within the walls of our chapel. And I'd say, go in there, have a look. For me personally, and I do mean this, I think it's one of the loveliest spaces in here. Considering what's happened, it's quite serene. It's a lovely space. So please, you know, go in there. Right, just to finish, what I want to do now is just tell you a little bit about...
the 20th century executions that took place there.
Sorry?
Of the 20th century executions that took place there. You spoke about that. Who were these people?
German spies, sir. German spies between the First and the Second World War. Yeah, yeah. If you want to find out about them, sir, can you see the wall there in between the two buildings, and there's a woman kneeling down there now? Yeah, there's information on them there. They were actually executed at a rifle range outside my living room window.
Oh,
Like I say, it's a lovely place to live. I parked my car there now, sir. I parked my car. I'm putting it to good use. Yeah, and the kids have got their bikes. Right, where was I? Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us, the Yeoman Warders. So, ever since the first foundations of the White Tower were laid in 1078, those in service of the monarch have stood watch and ward over its buildings and its prisoners. These were the first Yeoman Warders of the Tower of London. We, the Yeoman Warders of today, can claim a direct and unbroken line of descent from these original warders. Our merry fellowship, being the oldest association of uniformed persons in the world, have still carry out the same duties day to day, century to century, up to the present day. Now, although we don't guard the prisoners anymore,
well.
we just look after you. We're still the ceremonial guardians of the tower. Yeah, we secure the tower, we police the tower, we guard the crown jewels, and we tell wonderful people like yourself the stories of our nation. We're also extraordinary members of the King's Bodyguard, the Yeoman of the Guard, or one of the oldest royal bodyguards in the world. So dressed like this. Have you heard of them?
Yes, and
They guard the Pope in the Vatican and Rome in their brightly coloured uniforms, don't they? And they were raised in the year 1506. That's why we call them the new kids on the block.
Oh yeah.
So what do you got to do to become a Yeoman Warder? Well, we all have to have served a minimum of 22 years in His Majesty's Armed Forces, Army, Navy, Air Force. We all have to reach between the rank of Sergeant Major, that's Warrant Officer, and Colour Sergeant. We all have to be awarded this medal here. It's called the Long Service and Good Conduct Medal. Otherwise known as the Undetected Crime Medal. I was never caught.
No.
Number of the Yeoman body today is 35, and we represent all branches and services of His Majesty's Armed Forces, Army, Navy and Air Force. I myself was in the Army! I said I was in the Army! Yes, yes, and I served in His Majesty's Coldstream Guards, yes. Bearskin caps, scarlet tunics, Buckingham Palace, Coldstream Guards, and I served in that regiment loyally for almost 24 years. And I myself served in one of their elite units. I played the flute in the band.
Yeah.
Forget about these roughy-tufty soldiers, ladies. Everybody knows that real men play the flute. Yeah, my job was musical support for the state and the royal family. I worked for Her late Majesty quite a lot, actually, and we all miss her dearly. Right, to finish. 2 of the most common questions we get asked here as Yeoman Warders at the Tower of London. First one, why do they call you Beefeaters? Second one, where are the toilets?
Yeah. I was thinking about that.
Tell you where all the toilets are? Well, behind the jewel house. But why do they call us Beefeaters? Are you ready for this?
We're ready.
We don't know. We haven't got a Scooby-Doo. We don't know. It's a nickname. We don't know what the origins of that nickname are. Now, there's theories. King's Bodyguard, maybe we were paid in beef. Large ration of beef daily at court. It's quite probable, but there's nothing written down to support that, so we don't know. Another thing is King's Bodyguard, maybe we could taste the beef from the King's table. We had to make sure it wasn't poisonous. We have to protect the King, don't we? I'm not doing that. Some people think we're called Beefeaters because we drink a lot of gin. Some people think we're called Beefeaters because we're named after Beefeater gin. Do you know Beefeater gin? Yeah. Wrong. Beefeater gin, it's actually named after us. And we're very fond of that gin distillery, and that gin distillery is very fond of us. To the extent that every single Yeoman Warder on their birthday from Beefeater gin gets a bottle as a gift. Isn't that amazing?
Yay!
Isn't that amazing?
Yay!
Isn't that amazing? My birthday is every day. I do like my gin. As part of our terms and conditions of service, we get to live within the walls of the Tower of London with our families, and we get to share our delightful little village with you wonderful people, and you are wonderful people, every single day. On that, ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, one and all, that's all the time I have to tell you about history. Thank you for staying with me, because it would have been really lonely up here without you. And a strange man dressed like this talking to himself in London is never really a good idea in the first place. Okay, if you've enjoyed my tour here today, yeah, my name's Yeoman Warden Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy, if you enjoyed yourself. So, if you have enjoyed yourself, when you get home, flip open your laptops, Google in TripAdvisor, click on review, Darren Hardy, give us a decent review. If by any chance that you haven't enjoyed yourself here today, guess what? I don't care, and this really is gin. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.